everyone, welcome back. Really excited to do a reaction to this video today from Aztecross, who is easily in my top 10 favorite YouTubers, if not in my top 5 YouTubers. I pretty much watch all of his videos, regardless of what it's about. So to see him making a video about the Division 2 and the ban waves, yeah, this has me really excited, and let's check it out together and I'll give my reaction to it as we go through.
Well, guys, turns out a recent wave of bans in D2 has been flooding the internet, sparking commentary from gamers, journalists, and developers across whether this action is appropriate. The bans are so surprising that we felt compelled to weigh in and gather all the data to why exactly these folks were banned. The D2 we're actually talking about today, though, is the Division 2. Now, we caught whiff of this on July the 4th, when the Division 2 development team at Massive Entertainment addressed an exploit that allowed players to gain an unfair amount of XP and SHD, that being shade levels. Now, the punishment for players engaging with this exploit ranged from account progression rollbacks and a 2-week suspension all the way to permanent bans from the game. Now, face value, this seems like it's just a developer stepping in to protect their integrity of their product, that being the game. But I've actually seen this firsthand before. If you remember way back when, Anthem did the exact same thing, and it did not work out well for them. Today, though,
Okay, so the Anthem example is a bit different because it was a PvE exploit that Glad got banned for, and rightly so. I don't think they should have got banned for, because I'm not totally against PvE exploits that much, because at the end of the day it's only your fun. But he may go on to explain that more, so let's just go on.
I wanted to dive into what this exploit actually was, and then just talk about whether or not these bans were justifiable. Now, to start with the exploit, the Division 2 has been running for 5 years strong now.
Whoa. Hey, what is this? I've never seen this graphic before.
The exploit, the Division 2 has been running for 5.
Estimated monthly average daily players, 113,000 for June 2023. I've never seen this before. Where's this come from? Are those really the figures? Average daily players, 113,000 for June. Wow. Okay, that's much higher than I thought.
5 years strong now, with multiple expansions, progression systems, and game modes. And at the core of the controversy is Descent, which is a wave-based mode where agents fight groups of enemies with escalating difficulty, with high rewards to match. It mixes roguelite and horde mode elements, and serves as a great test bed for unique builds and playstyles, solo, or even up to 4-player co-op. Now, it's important to note here, players that quit Descent or die before completing the run do not receive rewards. Now, the exploit in question circumvents this high-risk, high-reward structure, and this reached back to several weeks ago. Massive posted a known issue for the game on Trello, stating that Ubisoft Connect allowed players to join in-progress runs of Descent.
And before we carry on, he might say this here, they also issued a statement, I don't know if it was on Twitter or somewhere, to basically say that if people are using exploits, they are going to be banned. So people knew about this weeks ago.
This feature is meant to be disabled. Now, the issue is actually larger than that. Sending invites to friends from your platform of choice rather than within the game allow players to join. Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam players all have system-level invites for friendly accounts on that platform, making it possible to take advantage of this exploit on any device you have the Division 2 on. Because why would people get banned for joining friends in a co-op activity? Well, joining is only half the exploit. The Descent grants escalating rewards based on progress. Joining a player that's on the first wave will give you nothing. However, if you join a friend that is on wave 20, 30, or 40, now you're earning XP and rewards at that level, which is clearly not what the developer intended. Now, it gets worse. After somebody joins on a high Descent loop, you can immediately quit the game and reap all the XP and shade levels that were earned up to that loop.
That's exactly it. If someone's at like level 30, you could jump in, gain all the XP that person's gained up to level 30, die, get back, come back out, be re-invited, go back in, and just keep infinitely doing that.
Altogether, players could skip the entire Descent run and pocket the cash, creating a no-risk, high-reward mode that nobody asked for. So why is this an issue? In many games, a PvE experience farm is relatively harmless. The answer is shade levels. An in-game infinite leveling mechanic that was introduced to Division 2 with the Warlords of New York expansion. For many players, Shade Level 1000 is an important target to reach, offering substantial buffs to weapon damage, critical chance, damage resist, and much more. All of these benefits are capped at Shade 1000. But there's one player stat that isn't: health. Player health can be increased infinitely, albeit in small increments, and Descent just gave everybody a free pass to the top. The issue becomes clearer in the extraction-style PvP Dark Zone. The impact of this shade farm transforms from a
Witnessed a 60,000 shade level player with 209k HP bonus. How is this balanced? Most people around 1 to 3,000 have around 30k. This person has a whole extra bar's worth of health pool.
harmless PvE farm into a serious competitive issue. Something I think all gamers can kind of understand.
Yes.
Now, with this context, it's much easier to understand why Massive is taking such strong action. Some Division players are celebrating this as a necessary action against bad actors, while many in and outside of the community are baffled that a developer would take such hostile actions against its own community. And again, on one hand, it's absolutely the responsibility of a live service developer to protect their community from cheaters, hackers, exploiters that would intentionally disrupt the experience of others for their own gain. But guys, on the other hand, all of the exploits and questions have been known to the community for weeks, and by the developer for at least as long. All bans and rollbacks are affecting players that have spent at least $60 to play the game, and some of whom are just following the advice of YouTubers and streamers pointing out an efficient way to level their agent.
Okay, so to respond to that, anyone who posted the exploit, a YouTuber or whatever, who posted the exploit online, they would have, I assume, I've not seen, but I assume most of them have said, look, this is an exploit. So, you know, and when people hear that, then, I've said this before, but we're all adults here. We know what an exploit is, right? It's a way to circumvent what you can do in a game to achieve something that shouldn't be possible. And as Massive have done previously, I mean, this isn't new to the Division 2, right? This doesn't just come out of nowhere. If this was to happen in Destiny, it would be massive because they've never done this before. But Division 2 have done this plenty of times before, banned people. This isn't new. People should have known this was going to happen.
To an extent, this situation is the result of a developer's failure to address known issues. Yet the punishment falls on the players that harness them.
Okay,
And look, as someone that plays Destiny 2 literally every day, I get it. This is a complicated situation for any live service or MMO game. Hell, just last week, Bungie quietly set off a wave of bans that happened to affect a number of speedrunners in the PvE community. Granted, those things have been rolled back, but we have cheaters that definitely pop up within the game that Bungie nails down. But I don't think Bungie has ever banned anyone for exploiting something in their game. And believe me, guys, we have made so many videos on exploits, whether that was like glitching out of nightfalls or cheesing dungeon bosses. Can you imagine if Bungie banned us for these things? And one thing I really do like about Bungie is
Yeah, so they're PvE activities, not PvP.
their philosophy is, if it's an exploit or a bug within the game itself, it's on them. That's not on the gamer. Now listen, I don't play Division regularly. We have played it in the past, but it's been a while. And at least from what I've seen here amongst veteran Division players, this exploit is absolutely impacting the PvP environment. But the way we look at it, at least outwardly, is that there's no third-party software or hacks involved. I know I'm coming off as like a spoiled Destiny player here, but the 3 ways I've seen this handled by Bungie
Yeah, I think a little bit spoiled because
is one.
I don't think many other games actually follow what Destiny 2, and I think a lot of games, most games, would actually do what Massive did here and ban players.
1, if it breaks the game, disable it. 2, if it's not breaking the game, let Guardians have fun until it's fixed. And 3, ban excessive use of exploits either entirely or from certain parts of the game. Option 3 is always the least popular, but they all demonstrate a marked shift in the culture of live games. I remember the RuneScape days of identifying an issue and immediately posting it to a forum or a message board to raise its profile in the hopes that it would be resolved. In the streaming age, raising an issue's profile also means that players will see it and have a chance to exploit it before a resolution is implemented. At the end of the day, if you were a Division player doing this, you were chasing the most effective means of leveling. And look, if I was a Division player, I probably would have done the exact same thing here. Massive is trying to clamp down on something negatively impacting their community, but I have seen this firsthand blow up in a developer's face.
Yeah, okay.
Years ago, there was an exploit, and it wasn't even that bad of an exploit, but it was an exploit in which we were farming up high-level gear, XP, and other things within Anthem, which, by the way, didn't even have in-game, all right? And we sunk hundreds of hours into Anthem. Believe me, if there was in-game, we would have found it. Before you say Cross, what about Grandmasters? Look, we did them all, okay? At the end of the day, there was no raid race going on. There was no major competitive edge you could have had over another player. There was no true in-game. Yet BioWare and EA took it upon themselves to ban Glad for taking advantage of an exploit that many of us were taking advantage of, which resulted in Glad just quitting Anthem. It simultaneously made a lot of us uncomfortable. Glad said it best here.
I see an opportunity, a more efficient, effective, smart way to farm loot. I'm going to use it, and so are many other people.
Ultimately, I'm not a game dev, nor am I an avid member of the Division community, but this feeling is very familiar to me. Why does an unlimited PvE progression system offer such huge PvP bonuses?
Yeah, totally agree with that. In terms of the shade progression system within PvP, it has to be capped. I think it should be capped at 1,000. In fact, in many ways, they shouldn't have one in there at all, because I think that ultimately PvP should really be kind of balanced just on gear alone, rather than some kind of other number. In Destiny, for example, it's just based on your gear, unless you're in a competitive mode where it's based on your light level. Your light level can have an impact. For example, in Iron Banner, in the Division 2, I think it should pretty much purely be based on the gear that you have.
Are bans and rollbacks being exclusively targeted at bad faith exploiters, or will innocents get swept up in it like Destiny speedrunners? In my opinion, guys, rollbacks are acceptable, but outright permanent bans for an exploit in the game, feel like that's pretty harsh. Division 2 very much still has a live and vibrant community with a dedicated player base who, by the way, some are very elated that these few bad apples will no longer be around to spoil the bunch. We do know that rollbacks are going to be going out, but personally, if I was to play a game and I was to find some way to gain an advantage in-game using in-game mechanics, even if it was a workaround, and I was to get banned, I'm just letting you know, guys, that would probably be it for me in that game. One of the most fun aspects, especially to a live service game, is when you discover something that gives you that advantage. And it could have been something as simple as like RuneScape back in the day, right? Like discovering ways to power level faster. We've made countless guides on how to farm for a number of resources inside of Destiny 2, some of those taking advantage of exploits. And this concerns me when Massive in the Division 2 and other developers start banning players for this kind of stuff, because I don't want this to happen in the games that I play. We'll see what ends up happening, guys. I'm curious to know how many people actually got permanently banned. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I very much would love to hear what the Division community has to say on this fact. As someone who has personally taken advantage of so many exploits, this right here, this scares me. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.
Alright, so that's the end of the video. Really great video from Aztecross as always. Does obviously done a lot of research in this. I don't know how much he plays the game. I think he said that he doesn't really play it anymore, though he used to. Obviously done a lot of work to figure out how this stuff works, and given us his opinion, which is basically that he doesn't agree with people being banned. He agrees with the rollbacks, but he doesn't agree with people being banned. And I understand that position, right? I get it. Shifting the blame to the developers, because ultimately what he says is that this is in-game mechanics. This is not using third-party software, and so long as it's in-game mechanics, then it's the devs' fault. Now, I've heard this. So here's my take. I've heard people say that, and I understand that point of view. And if that's your position, then fine. I get it. However, the way I see it is, yes, of course, it's the developer's fault for having the exploit available in the game, or for this being in the game, but it's also the player's fault for using that exploit. And I said this to Scarrow, who's also another Destiny player. Again, really great player, someone who I'm really fond of his videos, especially his live streams and whatnot. But the way I see it is this, is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, especially something that's against the terms of service. Now, if this was just a PvE exploit, yeah, I mean, a rollback, fine. bans, yeah, I probably would be against that. I think I probably would be, because at the end of the day, PvE, generally speaking, it only affects your own experience. And so I think I would be totally with Aztecross on that. But when it goes into the realms of PvP and affecting other players' experience, then I think that's where, for me, it goes over the line. And I made the... And again, I could be wrong about this, but if Trials in Destiny... if you went into a Trials match in Destiny and you were up against a team and all of the other team had 100 more health than you do because of exploits in the game, then I don't know. I mean, and this is a question for Aztecross if he's going to watch this video. I doubt it, but if someone who plays Destiny who participates in Trials, let me know. Would you be calling for those players to be banned, suspended, or would you be calling for Bungie to fix those issues? I mean, of course you'd be calling for that, but would you expect, or would you be happy if those players got banned? I mean, personally, for me, I would, and I think that would be the right thing to do. But I appreciate that not everyone believes that. Destiny is a different beast. I've got to admit, Destiny is a different beast, because I think most other developers put in Massive's position here would have done the ban and would have suspended players and rollbacks, but Destiny doesn't do that. And you've got fair play. That's great. It's kind of a catch-22 situation as well, because I've seen some people say, well, if they start banning people, then people are going to, people are never going to return. They're going to leave the game and they're going to lose players. But then on the flip side, if you allow that stuff to go, then people who are going to be affected by those exploits are then not going to play the game because they're being affected by the exploits. For example, if you were to go into PvP a week ago and get destroyed by someone who had exploited the game, you may not play PvP again. You may not even play the Division 2 again. We also had the issue a little while ago where exploits were destroying the stability of the servers, and I guarantee people just stopped playing the game because of that, because people were using exploits that they shouldn't be doing. And I'm completely against the idea that if it's there, then you should take advantage of it. And at the end of the day, of course, we all want to get the highest shade level possible. Of course, we want to get the best gear possible. But personally, I want to do that without exploiting the game. I want to do that legitimately, and that's the way I am. And if I find something in the game that's an exploit, and I know that is an exploit, then I'm not going to do it, because especially in the Division 2, you are going to get banned. Massive have said this before, they've banned people before. You are going to get banned. In Destiny 2, you might be able to get away with it, but in this game you won't, and in many others you won't. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, well, that's open to debate, and that's what this is all about. But really appreciate Aztecross's point of view. I think most Destiny players are probably sitting on the same point of view as Aztecross, and I completely understand that coming from, Bungie, who don't do that. But if you're used to this kind of thing, then you probably think it's acceptable. I think this is acceptable, what Massive have done here, and I'm happy they did it. I really am, and hopefully it deters people from trying to do that stuff again. But there we go. Till the next one.